Well, thank you for holding this hearing today. I came from a tech background. As some of you know, I was in the cloud computing business for 12 years before I came to Capitol Hill. I've seen the progress of blockchain technology for cybersecurity and other industries. It's been fascinating to watch what's developed here. It's also interesting from an energy point of view. For example, Bitcoin mining requires an enormous amount of electricity, sometimes surpassing even traditional mining projects. In my home state of Montana, we have facilities in Bonner and Butte that collectively require about 80 megawatts of electricity. There are plans by developers of these facilities to increase the energy demand, and news of other Bitcoin operations planning to move to Montana. So why are they thinking of moving to Montana? Well, we have a lower cost energy. One mining operation projects the next few years to expand to 100 megawatts, making one of the largest energy consumers in the state. Montana has cheaper electricity, we've got a colder climate, and we've got less expensive real estate. Not true everywhere in Montana, but in many places that's true. This activity can create a net benefit to our economy. In fact, we could see some changes, though, in the near future. There's coal strip units 1 and 2 in Montana that are planning closure. There are threats currently to units 3 and 4. We may see electrical prices go up and energy production in Montana go down. We are a net energy exporter today. If we lost coal strip units 1, 2, 3, and 4, we become a net energy importer. As the demand from Bitcoin miners increases and the supply of cheap, reliable electricity from coal generation decreases, this could pose a threat to the expansion of Bitcoin operations and even greater threat to energy supply and prices for Montana as a whole. Mr. Golden, you noted that Bitcoin miners prefer to locate in areas that have low energy prices like Montana. They rely on continuous, steady streams of electricity like other data centers. And I remember when I was running our hosting operations for our company, we had data centers all over the world. But these mining operations usually run 24/7 with continuous demand. Areas with strong baseload power are therefore attractive locations like Montana with robust hydro as well as coal generation. In fact, I recently heard of a coal-fired plant in Australia that was reopening to provide power to a new Bitcoin mine. The question is, how do you see the increase in Bitcoin mining and the reduction in traditional baseload generation resources, like the closure of coal strip, affecting the grid and the cost of delivered energy, especially in places like Montana?
Thanks, Senator. So I think fundamentally for the supply and demand piece, if your supply is dropping and your demand is increasing, then obviously you could see a change in the pricing structure for the service territory. So I think, obviously that's one thing to consider, but there's also the fact that utilities are consistently looking at what is happening in their service territory and making decisions on what technology or what generation to start up or shut down. So as they look at that, I think there'll be a lot of decisions made in their planning process as to if those coal units do go down, what would come in to replace that so they can continue to sort of provide their charter, which is least cost energy for their customers. So I think it'll take a lot. We don't know where these Bitcoin mines go, if they someday fold or if they're not there any longer. And it's difficult to make those decisions, but having those sort of planning tools in place and processes that utilities are very much used to helps them make those decisions. And I think having partnerships and frank discussions with many of these companies, at the outset is a very important thing for the utilities to get engaged with. And one of the things we've done at EPRI is we've started a thing called Utility Blockchain Interest Group, which is simply to get as many of our members around the table to have these discussions in a sort of a frank, meaningful way so that maybe your utilities from Montana can talk about somebody who's had this problem in New York or maybe in Washington, and some lessons learned could be passed.
Or Australia, it sounds like.
Or Australia, right.
Right, they brought a coal-fired plant on to supply reliable, low-cost energy for Bitcoin mining. Along that line, in this need, I guess, for agility and be able to, in responsiveness. In your written testimony, you discussed the difficulties of predicting future energy consumption of Bitcoin miners and the potential problems associated with this uncertainty. You were just alluding to that. As the value of Bitcoin rises and falls, so does the incentive, perhaps, to mine more Bitcoins. This could lead to the investment in infrastructure that might be used for a few short months or could extend many years. How can communities and energy companies be more prepared as Bitcoin miners move into their regions?
I think, if these operations are sort of greenfield sites and they're starting to build brand new, I think it's a great time for utilities in the area to have discussions about what kind of infrastructure we require to put in place and help make sure that those companies are providing sort of their fair share of providing that infrastructure. I mean, other opportunities that we've sort of researched and seen is that these companies will often look for areas that maybe, for instance, a car wash that had a high electric load that could then be utilized, that connection could then be utilized to sort of hook up to the utility. So in that case, it's sort of a benefit where you're reutilizing infrastructure that maybe was defunct before that. So I think those two areas of looking for infrastructure that's already in place and built out, they could look for that, and then also having utilities have those discussions right up front with new customers on how best set that infrastructure up.
Chair Murkowski, as Mr. Golden has alluded to, uncertainty is something that's difficult to manage, but having more optionality by having a balanced energy portfolio, I think, is part of helping address uncertainty going forward, and hope we can learn from places like Australia, like Taiwan, like Germany, that move too fast in one direction and kind of lost sight of having a diversified energy portfolio. Thank you.